Management, it's quite a heavy word, isn't it? This M word, it gets quite a bad press. In this country alone, 32 million people now every day go to work, full or part-time. The labour force is huge when we all hear the macro, the aggregate data about the economy. But where do we actually see that discussed at length? And John Monks, the old General Secretary of the TUC, used to say, where's the coverage of work, this world of work? Which government department in this country is actually really responsible for, the quality of working life and management? There is a department called the Department for Work and Pensions, but I'm not sure how interested in work. So, I'm not talking about the civil servants, of course, who are very hard-working, but the notion of work, of the quality of working life. I mean, does that come up? We have a business department. We've done an industrial strategy, very good, and some corporate governance reform, very good. But do we see how much time and resources dedicated to the study of work and management as it's going on? And yet we also hear at the same time we've got this chronic productivity problem. And that must have something to do with the quality of management and how work is organised. We can argue about the numbers, of course, in a heavily services-driven economy. Harder to measure productivity, arguably, given that concept comes from really a manufacturing idea. There's also lots of discussion about online, digital, how do we measure productivity? How do you measure outputs in a digital world? These are difficult questions. Are social media distracting everybody from being more productive? Or, actually, in a so-called knowledge economy, an ideas economy and a service economy, isn't it our job as employees to be very well informed and up to date? And isn't good service going to involve being up to speed with what's happening in the world? So is social media a distraction, or is it actually a boost to the quality of what you do? These are all questions we could ask. So management does get a bad press, in contrast to its rather more glamorous, much better paid cousin, leadership, with a capital L. Leadership. Don't you just feel better hearing that word? Leadership. Leadership has been held up as, the answer. We talk much, much more about leadership, I think, than we talk about management. And leaders, of course. Now, and our journalists are partly to blame for this. We're told to tell stories through people. We try and tell the story of whole complicated organizations through the person of a CEO. Will Dave Lewis turn Tesco around? I sort of picture, it's like Atlas, isn't it, with the globe. I picture, there's Dave, and his friend sees him and says, all right, Dave, yeah? He goes, yeah, all right, I'm fine, yeah. Says, what have you got there? He says, it's Tesco. Tesco PLC. What are you doing with it? So, I'm trying to turn it around. I think it's a ridiculous notion, which is not to say that leadership isn't important. Of course it's important. Leaders set the tone, leaders are watched, leaders are studied, perhaps more than leaders sometimes realise. They, in turn, have to manage people who are close to them, who spread the message, if you like, from the top through the rest of the organisation. So leaders are important, but I don't think, frankly, really quite as important as we sometimes think they are, or in terms of the attention, the disproportionate attention we give to them. Leaders of big, complicated, multinational organizations. Where is the work really happening? Where's the difference being made? Not in the CEO's office. As the Japanese say, if you want to know what's happening, you have to get out of the office and go and look for yourself. You have to go and see where the work is going on if you want to understand how well things are being run. And of course, this is also embodied in the disproportionate rewards that seem to be going persistently to people at the top. It's tough at the top. That's what they tell you. It's tough. There's certainly responsibility, and the buck will stop with you. So that's quite tough. But what else do we know about the jobs at the top? Much better paid. More support staff. The jokes that were formerly terrible suddenly seem to be irresistibly hilarious with all your colleagues. Lots of senior managers waiting on what you have to tell them and hoping that you'll further their career. Some autonomy, certainly a lot more autonomy than people lower down in the organisation. As you know from the Michael Marmot studies, the real stress is in the middle and at the bottom, where there's less autonomy and choice and less control and much less support and more real work to do as well. Jerry Robinson, who used to run Granadas, he blew the gaff on that when he said, look, actually, as CEO of this big company, I've got 10 or 12 big decisions to make a year, and that's really it. And as long as I get about 9 or 10 out of the 12 right, we'll be okay. And by the way, I'll be on the golf course on Friday afternoon. It's not really as tough at the top necessarily as all that. It's tough lower down. And that's why management is so important, because it's human lives that we're talking about. It's not just about the money, though that's important too. It's about the dignity of labour in this world of change. The quality of working life is absolutely vital for all of us if this productivity graph is going to start going back in the right direction, if wages are going to rise, if people are going to live full and fulfilling lives and working lives. And really, only managers in the workplace can make that happen, which is why we need to take management really seriously, I think, and worry about it just a bit more and reject the myths and the bad stereotypical behaviour that unfortunately is seen, and inflicted upon too many people at work today.